Hello everybody, it is I, Purple Bunny Animations on the Retro Gamers YouTube channel, here today disassembling a Sega Genesis. Now, as I disassemble this, I will be going over the history of the Sega Genesis, or well, information about it. But the Sega Genesis, was it's also called the Mega Drive for those 1.000% of us who's outside of America. But it was the first ever 16-bit home video game console, and it was developed and sold by Sega. So Mario can go and suck it. Sega was there first. Now, the Sega's successor was of course the Master System, which I'll go over on a later date when I get my hold of one and take it apart. But for now, we're continuing with the Genesis. As I remove the little fucking shield, I don't know what it's called. I'm removing it though. Oh, I'm exposing the circuitry. Now, in Japan in 1988, this is when the Sega Mega Drive was released. To everyone's joy. A new console that was more powerful and actually better than the Nintendo Entertainment System. Yes, I said it, and it is better. Maybe not better games, but software-wise, it was better. And in North America, it was released 1 year later, and in another year after that, it was released throughout the areas of like Europe, Australia, Brazil, and South Korea. And a fun fact is that Samsung distributed it. Samsung, that all-powerful company, distributed it as the Super Game Boy. Good job. So, as we know, it was like a real good home console for its time. Very advanced, very powerful. Only other consoles that could do this kind of thing that the Sega did at the time was coin arcades. And even then, they're pretty shit. Now, it lasted from, 1988 to 1997, which was a good long lifespan for a console then. Real good, real long. It lasted into the 3D era, So here I am, taking out the board. Now, that piece right there is going to bother me a bit later, that fucking little plastic piece that I snapped out. You don't unscrew those parts on the cartridge, because that also holds it down. That's the one thing I like about the Sega Genesis here, is that not only is it held in by solder, it's also held in by screws. The parts that I'd be like most pulling on, like putting in cartridges, taking out controllers, those parts are held in. They assume once you plug up the Genesis though, the power cable's not going to do that, and underneath it you can see all that good stuff. So yeah, you can see its CPU there. You can see some chips. I actually don't know what half of these things are. Some of these are RAM chips. I think one of these is the if I'm correct, this is the Motorola 68000 chip, and with the Zilog over there for the audio, and on it also is a Yamaha YM2612 and a Texas Instruments SN76489. And I think that right there is mod work. I really don't know. I've never held one of these open before, but I'm pretty sure that's some shoddy mod work there to keep the power flowing. Because, from pulling and tugging and all that good stuff. But yeah, pointed out right there. But the Yamaha M2612 is also in my Yamaha keyboard from '87. This was a good sound chip. Like, when you wanted quality sound, you went to Yamaha. Now, as I've taken apart the entire machine, here I am about to start rebuilding it. But the Sega was built by Hideko Sati and Masami Ishikawa. Don't know if I said this. And they made this back in, 1988. They had a title of more than 900 games and a wide array of third-party publishers. on ROM-based cartridges. And there was a lot of add-ons to it, which my friend loves to call the monster. The Genesis itself is the core of the monster, with the X32 and the Sega CD attachments added on, which makes it real amazing. And also, little known is that Sega created 2 network services to create the Genesis. Technically online services, I'd say, which are Sega Magnet and Sega Channel. Now, in Japan, this console did god-awful against, the Super Famicom and the PC Engine, but in America, Brazil, and Europe, these things soared like fire. Along with everyone's favorite egotistical son of a bitch hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog. Along with a few sports franchises, actually. That's actually one of the few things that I can say about this, is that it has some good sports franchises. And it was very popular among the older players and even the newer generation. That's the one thing it did, is it brought together even more generations of players. But it also sparked what has still been going on to this day, the console wars. Now, this console, I'd have to say, is very amazing in my opinion. Very advanced, very clean cut. The console is a success. And I have to say that despite its competition, despite Sega's flaws, this console definitely stood up top. And that's evident in the 30 million first-party Genesis units sold worldwide. And in third-party, like Tectoy and Majesco, those sold about 4.5 million. And much smaller numbers are sold by Samsung in South Korea because, South Korea. And the most beautiful thing about the Genesis that I can still say is that people still make games for it. There are games still being made for this thing. Now, as I put it together, I will be doing a test to show that it still works with the good old-fashioned game Sonic Spinball. But this concludes pretty much our episode of Retro Breakdown. And we hope to see you all in the next video where we cover the NES, the OG granddaddy of home consoles, the one that made them real popular. So I'm going to shut up in a bit, and let y'all see me testing the game. So, hasta la vista to you all.